All right, guys, welcome back to the channel for another Real Talk episode. Today, we're going to be talking about 11.5 versus 12.5. I have been getting this question constantly in my IG DMs, and guys just will be like, hey, I watched your video, but I really want to know from you, like, you didn't really give us a conclusion. And largely that's because I don't have a conclusion myself. I kind of go back and forth on it, but we're going to try to settle the debate. 11.5 versus 12.5. I'm going to pose a bunch of questions. I have a whole list of questions on my phone that I'm going to ask myself and you guys and just kind of talk through it. And I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down in the comments what questions I forgot to ask, what are your answers to said questions, and what were your biggest considerations when trying to decide between an 11.5 and a 12.5. Now, this is already going to take a long time to get through, so we're not even going to bring up, the 10.3, the 12-inch, the 13.7, all the other, the 12.7s. Like, we're not even going to talk about that stuff. We're not talking about any specific companies either, and I'm going to try to keep it to just 5.56. So we're not really going to be discussing 6 arc and all these other really cool, like, newer calibers that have come out. It's going to be about 5.56, 11.5 versus 12.5, and not brand specific. So before we dive into it and we get into my list of questions that I'm going to start talking through, I first want to take a moment to thank the biggest sponsor of the channel, which is Brownells. Guys, Brownells has supported me from day one, so if you do want to support the channel, please head over to Brownells. Head over to rangedaybro.com, actually. We can't link to it here on YouTube, but rangedaybro.com, we have a discounts page. You can click on that link, and then you have a discount code RDB10, and that'll save you guys 10% off over there. Also, there's a ton of other affiliate links there, like from Midway, from Primary Arms, pretty much anywhere you guys probably already shop on the internet. And if you use my codes, it does support the channel. So thank you for doing that. We also have a loadouts page where there's going to be a lot of these guns you're going to see today already on the loadouts page with all the links to the parts on there. Also affiliate links. So if you use those, it does help me out. So thank you guys for doing so. Subscribe to the email list over there at rangedaybro.com. We have merch. We have a ton of cool shirts and just, liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. But without further ado, let's just get this little notes tab up, and let's start with this. So I want to just mention real quick, this is fairly obvious. I'm one guy, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. All of my experience is just my own, and so everybody has their own experiences, and the velocities and all the things that I'm going to go through today are, again, just what I've experienced in my journey. But if you guys do value that opinion, thank you for staying, and I also value y'all's opinion, so let me know down in the comments. There's no free lunch, obviously, with any of this stuff, and we're really splitting hairs. I just want to kind of say that at the front. If you have an 11.5 or 12.5 already, I would highly encourage you just to train with and or upgrade your glass or just buy ammo, take a course with it before you make another gun purchase. Because, again, as we'll see, as I go back and forth on these two all the time, owning both, I kind of go back and forth on which one I like better. So the difference really is, we're really splitting hairs with the differences. All right, so I'll just start with muzzle velocity, increased or lost. So this was the biggest differentiating factor for me, at least perceived factor, before I actually chronoed both uppers. Now, again, the data that I have is from the Super Duty line, so Cold Hammer Forged Chrome Line Geisley barrels. And when I shot the 11.5 versus the 12.5, I had very unimpressive, I guess, muzzle velocity gains, you could say. With 55 grain, if I can remember correctly, it was about 50 feet per second. It was between 45 and 65 FPS increase from the 11.5 to the 12.5. And with 77 grain OTMs from AAC, I think it was about like 60 to 80 FPS. So if we're talking on like the highest end, I know because barrel finish, there's a lot of factors that go into muzzle velocity. And so if you're going from a Cold Hammer Forged Chrome Line barrel to a stainless steel barrel, it may be a difference there, right? But talking apples to apples, both from the same brand, that was the increase I saw. And I was expecting more like 100 to 150. But even with those higher end, let's say, muzzle velocity increases, I would still argue that's kind of a negligible difference. Because if you're going to shoot past 400 to 500 yards, these are not the guns that are made to do that effectively. They're still going to, whether you have 150 is a pretty big difference on 5.56, but that, again, I didn't experience that. So let's just say 100 for a high end. If you're going to have 100 FPS velocity increase from 11.5 to 12.5, that's still not really enough to be able to hold on target. It's still going to have a significant drop at range. So it's not like you're shooting a 16 or 18 inch 5.56 gun. it's obviously better. It's going to be less affected by the wind. It's going to have a little bit less drop, but it's not enough of a determining factor for me, at least, to determine whether you should buy an 11.5 or a 12.5. So, and again, I'm probably going to forget a ton of stuff. You know, I always have these grandiose, like this whole plan before I come into these real talks, and then I just start talking and I forget. So let me know what I missed as far as that goes on the muzzle velocity side. Appreciate you guys. All right, reel space and accessories. This has kind of become the more important aspect for me. So let's just, since we're talking apples to apples, we're going to set down the Sig Spear LT. We'll come back to that in a moment, but let's just talk, since we're trying to get apples to apples, and we have both Geisley Super Duties. Which one's the Super? This is the Super Duty here. So we have both. Oh, the chair almost fell over. All right. It may in a second. We'll see. Let me just move this. No, they're good. They're good. Don't mess with a good thing. All right, so we have both Super Duties right here. So the 11.5 and the 12.5. And as you can see, they both have the same amount of M-LOK slots on here, which is something I learned when I was trying to count the slots in order to determine in footage which one was which. But the 12.5, the slots just start a little bit further forward or ahead of the from the chamber than the 11.5 does. Now, these are both running pretty slick right now because I have to move things around for reviews, and it's all on the 12.5 Griffin Mark II, which we're going to be reviewing next, which is a 12.5. But you can see the rail space difference here. And is it crazy? No, it's 1 extra inch, but depending on your height, depending on your build, that may make a difference for you. It does feel like with an LPVO, I will say, that the 11.5 has pretty limited rail space here. If you put a laser on here and then a tape switch, your tape switch is going to be pretty far back. You're also not going to have any room for a backup iron if that's important to you. And so, again, I mean, rail space is going to be what it is with an LPVO. If you're running an EOTech on here, it's still going to be the same as far as how back you have to mount it, how far back, but you have a little bit more room because you don't have that LPVO poking up so far. So that's one thing to consider. And I'm 6'1", and I tend to find that the 11.5s, I'm just really kind of having to go like favela style, like stacking things on top of each other as close as possible, you know, which is kind of what you want for buttons anyways. But I do feel more limited, and I have to make more concessions with the 11.5 versus the 12.5. And also, again, just being a big guy, when I hold this thing, and if it just feels short. I mean, it feels good, it feels fast, but it just feels like, I mean, I want to grip it like right out here. So it just does, it feels a little bit short. And that's kind of become, and maybe that's just because I've been shooting the 12.5 a lot more lately. And so I'm just become more accustomed to this. And so that's more of a comfort thing. That's a very subjective thing right there. So rail space, it is what it is. And while we're on the topic, let's talk about weight. The weight itself is not that big of a difference. I think it's like a half a pound. I mean, I know ounces equal pound, pounds equal pain. So take that in consideration, but it's really not the weight of the gun itself, the 1 inch of extra barrel and the 1 inch of rail. It's really the weight of the attachments being further out. So that same thing I was kind of complaining about on the 11.5, where, you know, it feels like it's all a little too far back and there's not enough space. Well, that does translate into a lighter feeling gun when you're swinging it around. If you're running with it, it is more noticeably balanced, I would say, than a 12.5, especially like the 11.5 Spear LT. If that was a 12.5, I'd feel like, because it's already a front heavy gun being a short stroke gas piston, you know, but with a DI gun, it's not horrible, but depending on the can you have. And yeah, I guess let's just get into that without taking a peek at my list. I know this is on my list. So gas systems and whether you're going to run it suppressed or not. Let's just take those two hand in hand. So a lot of people kind of give the Geisley 12.5 crap, or say I will buy it when it comes with a mid-length gas system instead of a carbine length gas system. And so since we're on that topic, let's just lay these down so they do not fall. And we'll grab the Griffin Mark II. There we go, it fell. This guy does have a mid-length gas system. And I didn't really even take note of this when I first got it in. I took it to the range and I shot it. Didn't even look at the gas length, the length of the gas system or anything like that. And one thing I noticed immediately is it's a very soft shooting gun. Now they do have like a hydraulic, some type of specialized hydraulic buffer weight system in here. So I just kind of credited it to that. But again, shooting the 12.5 carbine length for shooting the 12.5 mid length, I can say, not back to back, but I can say from what I can remember, I remember distinctly being like, dang, this thing shoots pretty soft, which was pretty impressive right off the jump. So that was my first impression of the Griffin, and I didn't even like put two and two together or really consciously think, oh, that's a mid-length gas system. So I think that, is it a game changer, or is it enough to hang your hat on to make a decision based off of? Well, it depends on your priorities, right? Let's just get this list out, because I know we're gonna hop over some things and I'm gonna go back and be like, damn, I should have listed the list. So what are your priorities? What are your considerations? Let's see. What's your use case? Met TC, right? Like what is the mission? What is the environment? What's the terrain? I know that's not really applicable to civilians, because you don't know what's going to come, right? We're not going on offense. Most of the time it's a defensive mission and the bad guy gets to choose it. But is a really soft shooting gun important to you, or is the reliability more important to you? And it's not to say that a mid-length 12.5 is unreliable. That's not what I'm trying to say. But when I spoke to Geisley specifically about the Super Duty and why they went with the carbine length, I was told directly from Geisley that because they could not get the reliability they wanted with a wide variety of ammunitions that are out there in the marketplace with a mid-length gas system. So again, is that Geisley making excuses? I don't think so. I think everything Geisley does is top notch. They don't pay me. They've only sent me one upper ever, but I've spent a lot of money on their products and I like their products. But it was nice to shoot this, and it was a very soft shooting gun, and it is a noticeable difference, I will say. Now, is it enough of a difference to make a decision based off of? That's for you to decide. I guess we're not comparing the Griffin to the Geisley. These are both 12.5s, but I guess it's a point in the 12.5s area. It's a point towards the 12.5, or an argument towards the 12.5 over the 11.5, because it is softer shooting than the 11.5 with the carbine length gas. Now, I don't know how well this will come across on camera, but the gas block is right there at the front. So again, it's not very much dwell time, and that's where suppressing it or not suppressing it kind of becomes a factor, in my opinion. So with a type of gun like this, with a 12.5, and I would make the argument, if you have a suppressor, if you don't have a suppressor, you should get one. And if you have a suppressor already, you're obviously going to be shooting a 11.5 or a 12.5 suppressed. That's kind of the point of going with a 12.5. If you're not shooting a suppressed, why not just go with a 14.5 or 16-inch gun? So in that case, are you really going to have reliability issues? You're not going to have to worry as much about dwell time, because you're increasing the back pressure. If you have a traditional baffle stack cannon especially, then you're increasing the back pressure. You're making sure that the system has enough gas to function reliably, even when it's fouled up or you're running lower powered ammunition. So the whole argument for reliability purposes, if you're running a can, then why not go MIDI? That's kind of where I'm at. Now, also, it's not enough of a difference between this and the Geisley. Like the Geisley doesn't have like this crazy, insane recoil that's, unpredictable or so heavy it's it's distracting or it takes you off target. By no means. It's a just noticeable difference, I would call it. And is it enough of a difference to go out and sell your Super Duty up? No, I don't think so at all. And in fact, for me, typically I lean towards reliability. I lean towards making something super reliable, even if I'm getting a little bit more gas to the face, if I'm getting a little bit more recoil, I want it to be reliable. And that's what we saw with that Super Duty upper. I mean, we put 1,350 rounds through that thing on FRT mode, and it was so caked up with carbon on the inside. It was unbelievable. It was the dirtiest I've ever seen. I've ever had one of my ARs. I didn't clean it intentionally for 1,350 rounds, all suppressed, all in FRT mode, getting it super hot, mag dumping, and the gun just didn't have one malfunction, neither did the trigger. So again, I'm not saying that the Griffin couldn't do it. I'm just saying I like to know that my rifles are capable of just eating through whatever you put in it. So, but again, another consideration is the gas length system. So if you're going to go 12.5, if having a softer shooting gun with less gas to the face and you're going to suppress it, then obviously if you want a mid-length, you got to go with a 12.5. There are some exceptions to that, like this suppressed only 11.5 CAC barrel right here. This is a deep fluted H-bar stainless steel 1 in 5 twist 5.56 barrel from CAC Industries. This is paired with our downward venting BCG. And this gun also shot extremely soft, but it needs a suppressor to be reliable because there's such little dwell time. As you can see, the gas block is right there at the front of the handguard. Let me see if I can get it in front of my face. I can focus for you. It's right at the front of the handguard there. And so, yeah, this is a purpose-built barrel for somebody who wants an 11.5 and it's also going to be soft shooting because you're going to run it suppressed. And the only issue with something like this, or even like this, I guess, if you're going to call in the question the reliability of a mid-length without the can, is going to be if your can goes down for whatever reason, you may have an issue with your gun functioning properly with underpowered ammo, or if it's super dirty, or if you're in the sand or whatever. So that's something to consider. But I think for the vast use cases for civilians, that's not really something you're gonna have to worry about. You know, your cans, people typically don't put enough rounds to their cans to ever make them go down unless they unthreaded themselves, a baffle strike or something like that. But again, another consideration, just something to think about, and I will consult the list before I go down a rabbit hole. All right, so we got rail space and accessories. We got suppressed or nah, carbine versus mid-length. Okay, we just covered that. Weight of the gun. Yeah, we kind of talked about that already too. The weight of the gun is not that big of a difference. It's really the distance of the attachments from you, throwing off the center of gravity, throwing off the balance point, I guess you could say. But with a big old LPVO on a 12.5, it really still balances pretty well. I don't think it's that big of it's not that big of a turnoff, right? So like so far, let's just recap, right? We've talked about the muzzle velocity, talked about the rail space, suppressed in the gas system, the weight, and the weight of the attachments being further from you. All that stuff, and I mean, I have buffer system in here as well because, that's just kind of goes into tuning as well. So rail length for build, so closing the gap, I guess that's a big one. So if you're building, if you aesthetically like it to have a very tight gap up here, can you build an 11.5 or a 12.5 with the proper, I think the 12.5s are a little bit harder to get the rails, 11.5 rails to go right up to the end of the barrel if that's what you like. But again, with the amount of rail options there are out there today, I'm sure you could find one. I know people keep asking Geisley when they're come out with the Mark 16 for the 12.5 barrel length, but I don't think they have yet. But I say all that to say, not one of those factors for me individually makes a deciding factor. It's when you start to combine multiple factors of, okay, is the increased muzzle velocity, do I want to increase muzzle velocity? Do I want a softer shooting gun? And do I not mind having the weight a little bit further out? Then the 12.5 starts to look more attractive. Now, if I'm a 5'7" dude, which there's nothing wrong with being a short king, right? Then it may look a little different for me, right? I'm 6'1", so this 12.5 feels like an 11.5 to me. Like you take a 12.5 and a dude who's over 6 foot, you put it in the hands of a dude who's 5'7", it looks like a 16-inch gun. And the same would go, like you see a 10.3 in my hands, it looks like I'm riding a Vespa versus a leader bike I should be on. So it's very subjective, I would say. And also, so let's go into the list of things to consider, right? So does it really matter? Optic choice matters more than 1 inch of extra or 1 inch less of barrel. That's I believe that to the day I die, right? You can't shoot what you can't see. And if you want to shoot up close and fast, it doesn't matter whether you have the 11.5 or the 12.5. If you have a red dot on there, it's probably going to feel the same. Like you close your eyes, you blindfold me, you put a timer on, hit the buzzer, I take the blindfold off and I have to shoot a course of fire. I'm not going to probably notice as I'm shooting whether it's 11.5 or 12.5. If it's like, all right, you got 10 seconds to shoot this course of fire, whatever. That's the point is you're not going to really notice. And the training matters way more. The optic setup matters way more. Knowing your holds and having good quality equipment matters way more than 1 inch of extra barrel length. So yeah, what's your 80% use case? So are you going to be, where do you live? Like, do you live on a farm? Even where I live, I'm in the burbs of Austin, Texas. Like, we're in the hill country out here. I could see clear to 1,500 yards away from my doorstep. So yeah, I'm kind of in a suburban, rural, or urban area. Like I'm like 20 minutes from downtown, but I have a lot of wide open spaces I can shoot to. So, but is that going to be your 80% use case? Probably not. Probably going to be 100 yards and in. So in that case, again, I still don't think it matters, but that would be, I lean towards in favor of the 11.5 there, but it still doesn't matter. If you have or a red dot with a magnifier rather, then you're going to be golden either one you pick. All right. How do you train? What do you enjoy? Okay, this is an important one that gets often overlooked because we talk about these things like they are life and death, which they are, but also like you can't get burnt out. This is an expensive hobby. It takes a lot of time and energy to stay kind of motivated and what makes you want to go train? Like, do you like to shoot long range? For me, shooting steel plates at long distances, it just gets me going. I will never go back to an indoor range again, maybe to zero, just to get rid of some environmental factors and shitty target stands. But outside of that, I don't think I'll ever go back to an indoor range again because it's just, I feel like ammo is way too expensive. It's a waste of ammo. Most don't let you draw from a holster. But for me, shooting steel at distance and hearing that ping come back a couple seconds later, even with an 11.5 or a 12.5, that they can absolutely reach out, and I've done it many times, to 400 or 500 yards and beyond. That's what gets me going. That's what excites me. And so what makes you want to train? What motivates you? How do you like to train? Most people can't even shoot past 200 yards. Like at their local outdoor range, even they might have 100 yards or 200 yards if they're lucky. And it's usually just paper, not even steel. So I do recommend you like do some research, invest your time and energy and money into driving somewhere, and give yourself the gift of shooting steel at long range. It's really a phenomenal, wonderful experience. Where do you live? Terrain, we talked about that. Gas system, okay, we did talk about that already. Carbine versus mid-length. Cost is going to be practically the same in my opinion. Everything I've seen, like the Super Duty is the same exact price essentially. Availability is a little different. The 11.5 is in higher demand, I would say. Last I checked, the 12.5 has been in stock on Brownells for the 12.5 Super Duty in black has been in stock for like a couple weeks. So it seems like the 11.5 is in higher demand. Okay, this is a good one. Other guns you already have. So what other guns do you already have? Do you have a 10.3 already? Do you have most likely you have a 16-inch AR somewhere, right? Or you have an upper sitting around. So what does your current toolkit look like, and what tool is missing? If you have a 13.7 or you have a 14.5 and you don't have anything shorter than that, then maybe the 11.5 is the way to go, right? If you have a 10.3 and a 16-inch gun, then I would say go with a 12.5, right? So it just depends on what you are missing from your toolkit, so to speak. Or if you're like, hey, I have all these different guns, but I want one gun to do everything with, then just factor in the things we talked about previously into this consideration. So cost is gonna be about the same. What other tools do you have? Weight for rucking. I guess that's mostly for like a mini recce rifle. I would probably lean towards 12.5 for that, even though it's going to weigh a little bit more than the 11.5. But usually if you're talking about reconnaissance, you're talking about more wide open spaces, you're going to be traveling long distances, so the weight's going to matter, but you can kind of tailor your other kit to meet that. But you're probably going to want a longer rifle for recce anyways, like a minimum 14.5 to 16-inch gun. I've seen them, a lot of people recommend 18 inches for recce guns too, because again, you're in wide open spaces. And then the conclusion is get them both and then you decide, because it's a lot of pressure on your boy trying to tell you guys what to get and what not to get. I'm just a regular guy out here trying to figure it out myself and figure out what I like and what I don't like about both. It is definitely nice to shoot a gun like the Griffin that has a a mid-length gas system with their hydraulic buffer system. You can tell it's well tuned. Although this gas block is pinned, and call me crazy, but it is pinned and it is crooked. You guys are probably not gonna be able to see that on camera. I'll have to get some close-ups when we do the full review of this thing, but it's pinned and it's straight up crooked. I have no idea how that even happens unless the pinhole itself is crooked. But and I don't remember if I didn't notice it ahead of time. So we put so far we're like at a 200 round count with this thing, so not pretty low. But I didn't notice it before those 200 rounds. I just noticed it in the studio the other day, and I was like, interesting. Didn't have any issues with it, so we'll just keep running it like it is, kind of offset. Maybe that's a design feature, who knows. But yeah, it is nice to shoot a mid-length gas system on a 12.5. I will say it does feel softer than the 11.5 and the 12.5 in the carbine length, but if that's a priority for you, then there it is. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I guess I can speak to, I've already kind of talked about the piston gun and the Sig Spear LT. Oh, real quick, I guess we already talked about all these 11.5s in my 11.5 obsession video with the Real Talk. So if you want to see more of each of these 11.5s and the details on them, you can check that out, or you can go to rangedaybro.com on the loadouts page and see them over there. But this guy is a Daniel Defense barrel that D. Wilson cut down, and he kept the gas port the same size. So I think it's a .635 is what it is, because this used to be a 14.5 inch SOCOM profile barrel. So there's ways that you can go about through customizing or through a specialty product. I would call the CAC like a specialty product, right? If you're looking for a softer shooting 11.5, you can get it. But you're going to be reliant on a suppressor for that increased back pressure to make it run reliably. So there's ways you can do it. But the major things for me was the velocity increase, and that turned out to be less. It was pretty underwhelming, let's just say it that way. And then after that, the rail space and the ergonomics and the comfort while shooting it. So I kind of I've been leaning towards the 12.5 lately, because after I've been handling that so much, when I went back to 11.5, it just felt a little crammed. Even on the Sig Spear LT right here, which is kind of my love for this thing has been reinvigorated through the Delta Team Tactical FRT, which is a 3-position selected forced reset trigger. And the whole point of a short stroke gas piston gun, this is probably a whole video on its own. These really suck without the FRT. They're heavy in the front, and their only advantages are on shorter barrels, which this is, suppressed, which this is, and higher rates of fire. Okay, so that's where it really shines, I would say. So when I got the FRT, I was like, okay, this is the perfect host for that. And so, but it's so ridiculously overgassed with the RC2. So we have the Ferox on here. We're going to test it out with this guy now because it does have a reduced back pressure quality to it. I would say it's probably like 25 to 35% back pressure reduction. Very unscientific. That's just my guess from shooting it compared to the RC2 at least. And it sounds really good too. But even with this 11.5, you could see like how tight everything is up front. And this is where my grip wants to naturally go. And so with that, my IR laser pointer is in the perfect place for my CQBL. And I just have the button on top right now. So it's just that little button up on the top there, you can see. And so my grip is perfect to actuate the laser, but it's not perfect for this light. I have to like reach really far back in order to hit my white light, or this is a vampire, so white light or IR. But that's what I'm talking about. It'd be really nice if I could have this thing further forward and have a tape switch that had both right here where my thumb is comfortably. And on the 11.5, there's just not room to do that. Now, of course, I can move my VFG back a little bit, but you know, that's just not where I want to, that's not how I could shoulder the gun and grip the gun comfortably. So that's just a real world example right there of kind of the limited rail space on an 11.5, and that's the SIG Spear LT, so it's a little bit different. One last thing about the Griffin I'll just mention, because I imagine the same issue will be had on every 12.5 with a mid-length gas system. Maybe not everyone if the rail's a lot thicker, but I was gonna put this pick section up here at the front to do my grouping for accuracy testing this thing, and the gas block is right there in the front. So the actual M-lock will not, so it's like unusable M-lock in the front on the bottom of the rail. So that is something that really annoyed me. Unless I ground down those screws, and even then it's like extremely tight between the bottom of the rail, or the inside of the rail and the bottom of the gas block. So I imagine that's going to be an issue with most rails on most mid-length gas systems on 12.5s. But again, this rail is very skinny, I will say that. So maybe it's not as big of an issue on other rails, but just something to keep in mind if you're running like a mini recce, I guess you could say, or you put any attachment on the bottom and the front, you probably won't be able to, depending on the size. This is a very low profile gas block too. It's not like it's a beefy, oversized gas block, but it's just, you're not going to get anything on there. So something to keep in mind, something to note. But I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up today, guys. I mean, what's my final conclusion? Which one am I going to go with? I'm going to keep using both. I think that the 11.5 Spear LT is a great gun for home defense, for like a truck gun. It folds up really easily, really nicely without having to do, without having to go to the law tactical folder route. You could shoot it folded, which is practically useless, but still cool. That's probably going to be like the go-to home defense, purpose driven for like 200 yards and in. I do have a magnifier I could throw on there, a 5X magnifier if I really wanted to, but again, and then I'll probably just keep using the 12.5 Geisley Super Duty with the attacker on it for general purpose use, or like this Griffin might even find its way. It's going to definitely find its way into the mix because I'm reviewing it right now, so I have to put it through its proper paces, but I'll probably use something like this for a GPR, either the Super Duty or the Griffin. I have a lot more time on the Super Duty, so that's kind of like tried and true, trusty, like the Glock. This is more so like, hey, I just need to test this out for review. I mean, it's a cool gun, don't get me wrong, but aesthetically, I just love the Super Duty a lot. But this isn't a bad looking gun by any means. But I'd probably still venture towards and lean towards, if I didn't know what I was getting into, if I was kind of without rule of law, you insert scenario here, I have no idea what's happening, right? Minuteman type stuff, dare I say, probably going to be the 12.5 for like kind of the do-it-all GPR. It's going to be probably 12.5 just because I feel more comfortable with it. I have a lot more room if I wanted to put a thermal clip on here, which I definitely want to do in the future. Just can't afford it right now. I have a lot more room to do that, a thermal clip on with a 12.5 versus an 11.5. And I get a little bit more velocity, which does matter if you have to take a longer shot. So is it going to make or break the longer shot? No. Knowing your holds is going to be far more important than, the 0.1 more mil you have to hold for wind because your bull is traveling a little bit slower. Just shooting your gun a lot is going to matter way more than that extra inch of barrel. But I mean, they both have their place. I'll say that. If you're trying to decide, just kind of think through the questions we pose and read through the comments. I'm sure people are going to pose a lot more questions in the comment section about which things I forgot to mention or what they considered in their journey. And just ask yourself those questions and see which one you land on. So that's pretty much going to be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for staying to the end of the video. I really appreciate you guys being here, allowing me to do what I love for a living. It's a true blessing. I love every single one of you. If you want any merch, if you want to support the channel, our discounts page, our loadouts page, sign up for our affiliate or our email list rather over at rangedaybro.com. And then just like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Rumble, follow me on X, all the things. I love you guys. Drink a lot of water. Christ is King. Take care.